Hi, I'm Dr. Celine Gelgich.
And I'm Dr. Tori Miller. Welcome to Breaking the Rules. On Breaking the Rules, we talk about all things OCD.
Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, impacts up to 1 to 2% of the population. We are here to provide not just education, but to inspire clinicians, families, and people who are impacted by OCD to be able to access the treatment they need in order to get better.
Catch us every fortnight, wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, Celine.
Hey, Tori. What's happening?
Not a lot.
We find our back selves. Ourselves back here again. I don't know who my back self is, but anyway. Oh, my goodness.
Interesting part of self, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to be back here again.
Yeah, it is. It is. Talking today about perinatal.
Yes.
Yeah, the perinatal period and OCD.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for those who have listened to us before, you'll know that we've had a couple of discussions about perinatal, the perinatal period, perinatal mental health, and
Yes.
perinatal OCD.
Yep.
Which are great interviews
Mhm.
that are worth going back and listening to.
Definitely.
But today we thought we'd bring it to sort of the skills episode.
Yes.
And start thinking about sort of from the practicalities. So, you know, we've talked a bit in our past episodes about the complexities of the perinatal period.
Yeah.
And what it's like for new parents and how OCD just bloody loves that vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But now let's talk about what it's like to be a clinician working with someone
Yes.
during their perinatal period and with,
I love it.
with OCD and how to, you know, how to support them.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is such a vulnerable time. Those, not just the 6 weeks postpartum, but the whole time leading up to it. Even the idea of wanting to conceive and all that sort of stuff can feel really full on for a lot of clients, and the recovery afterwards, but also just adjusting to parenthood.
Yes.
I think for both mums and dads.
Yeah.
Is really tough.
Yeah.
And very vulnerable. And like you said, OCD loves to hang on to that. And so what do we do when it shows up in our therapy rooms, I think is a great question, and one that we're going to delve into today, as you mentioned. And so I think for me, one of the things that I often find myself involved in is when I've been working with clients for a little bit and they decide to start a family or, you know, that sort of stuff. So you get to carry them on that, you know, go with them on that journey.
That's pretty nice, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And so being able to be there with them, I often find, because it's one of the questions I get asked a lot as a supervisor, is how do people respond? Like, how intense is it in terms of therapy and treatment?
Yeah.
Is it worse? Is it easier? What's it like? What if they're already in treatment, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that I always say is, I'm curious to hear your experience too. What I often find is if a client has already been in therapy and the intrusive thoughts shift to motherhood, baby, pregnancy, etc., they kind of anticipate and know what it's going to feel like and can stay on top of things.
Yeah.
Other times it just comes out of nowhere or unexpectedly and throws them off or presents a lot of triggers that they didn't anticipate. But I often find those that struggle a little bit more have not likely been in therapy or had an experience like that. Like, do you find that as well? Like, what do you notice?
No, I would agree. I think that people who have had experiences of therapy before, even if it might have been back in adolescence, I think have a sense of and understanding themselves, a more developed vocabulary to articulate their difficulties, greater sort of self-awareness about, you know, what they're feeling, why they're feeling it. It's just about applying all the things that they've done previously to this new time of life.
Yeah.
And I think that framework really helps them think it through and I think to come back to therapy with ease, whether it's with the same clinician or somebody else.
Yeah.
I think it just helps them move back into the room, and I think that's much easier. But I think for people who have never done therapy before, it hits them harder.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, more difficult for them to understand what it is they're experiencing and why, while there's this enormous pressure, which is baby is coming.
Yes.
Or baby is here.
Yeah.
like there's this time crunch
Yeah,
to
like
it.
I've got 3 months left or 4 months
Yeah.
left or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
and this
Yeah.
pressure to like want to resolve it before the baby's due date. So that actually I think adds a degree of stress, I think, to
Yes.
the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also pregnancy and becoming a new parent can bring up old wounds
Oh, totally.
and
Yeah.
things that have been dormant or perhaps active but not functionally impairing or
you
not
thought
kind
you
of
had dealt with it in
yeah,
previous therapy
that's
sessions.
right.
And you're like, oh, there's that again.
Or things that maybe hadn't felt so urgent, and so
Yeah.
now they're bubbling up, and there does feel like there's that sense of urgency, which I think, and then sort of teasing that apart is, it's like, am I anxious about becoming a parent, or is this old stuff that's coming up in this new context?
Yeah.
It's a tricky time, but I agree that, and I think that's good for a clinician to know.
Yeah.
If someone has or hasn't been in therapy before, I think that, thinking about that gentle start with someone and holding them and making room for nervousness, confusion, stress, panic,
Yes.
dread,
Yeah.
all of
the
those things.
Yeah.
It's really useful.
Absolutely. Especially if they're having harm thoughts, which we've often spoken about, but I think it can leave a very feel like a very vulnerable space, because imagine saying to your maternal and child health nurse, oh, hey, I just thought about, I've just been having intrusive thoughts about like, putting the formula in the baby's bottle, but thinking that I'm putting arsenic in there or rat poison or some other thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm having intrusive thoughts about like just smashing my baby's head against the counter every time it cries or shaking it, which is really distressing.
But also I think the thing is though, right, is that if someone hasn't been through treatment before, potentially, they might not even use that terminology.
No.
They might not say, I'm having
they won't.
With that separateness.
Yeah.
They might not say, I'm having an intrusive thought,
Yeah.
or they might say, I'm not sleeping because I'm scared I've poisoned my
That's
baby.
right. Yes.
Or I just can't stop thinking about throwing my baby against a wall.
I'm worried I'm worried about this or whatever else. Or they might not even articulate it as worried.
Yeah, I think I'm going to poison my baby.
Yes. So it feels more definite. But even just like worrying about, or the anxiety around, I can't tell anyone this.
Yeah.
So it would be like you're describing, one step removed from the ability to articulate that separateness, and having this huge fear. So I think we need to be mindful of, and also curious about when we are working with parents, or expecting like, mums to be, dads to be, whoever it might be, or people even thinking about it, just checking in.
Yeah.
And being like, just wanting to check in and see how your thoughts are going in terms of how are you thinking? Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And just leaving space for that, and even normalizing, going, some parents to be start to experience these weird kind of really scary, uncomfortable, distressing thoughts. How are you going with your pregnancy, or how are you going with this idea of trying to conceive or adjusting to parenthood or whatever that might be, because a lot of the time I don't think we have that space in the maternal and child health. I think it's getting better. It's getting a lot better, but we don't always have that space.
And it's also, I think, the luxury of time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between spending 50 minutes with someone and having a 15-minute consult.
Yeah.
There's only so much
exactly
you can get done. Yeah.
I remember in those appointments, it's very much so quick, weigh the baby, check their milestones,
check in on mum, how's mum
doing?
This
stuff. And then it was a 2-second, and how are you going? Do you feel safe at home? Okay, great. Like, actually I could tell you a whole lot more, but all right, out you go. Next. That is so true.
And I think that's what you've articulated is beautiful, which is the importance of psychoeducation. That if we are in therapy with someone who is thinking about falling pregnant or is pregnant or has had a baby, we can offer a lot in terms of providing psychoeducation about what to expect and what is okay for them to tell us. And to normalize the beginnings of, whether it's OCD or not, the presence of these distressing, intrusive thoughts. And just normalize that, so that if your client starts to experience those, they feel like they can come and tell you, and it's not actually this shameful thing, or they're not left there sitting with themselves thinking, I can't tell anyone this because they're going to take my baby away from
That's
me.
right. Yeah, living in sheer terror,
Yeah.
or feeling like you can't touch your baby
Yeah.
or cuddle them or
Yeah.
console them or bond with them
Yeah.
because you're worried that if you change their nappy, you're going
Mm.
to molest them
Yeah.
or hurt them in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge, huge component of building that safety
Yeah.
and trust for disclosure to happen.
Absolutely.
Which is a part of therapy in any case, but I think in this instance even more so
Yeah.
because it already is such a vulnerable time.
Yeah.
Like I would say maternal anxiety just kicks in naturally anyway.
Absolutely.
Like it's just a natural process, but then there are levels of it.
Yeah.
As with anything. And it's this idea of when it starts to become insidious or it's keeping you up at night or you feel paralyzed or it interrupts your attachment with your child or whatever else it might be. That's when it's not okay.
Yeah.
But we want our clients to be able to tell us about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So psychoeducation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In a really roundabout way is really the first step.
And actually,
that sense of safety.
Yeah. And what you were saying also about, I think, not taking your rapport for granted. Let's say you've been working with someone for a while.
So true.
And you've worked on OCD or you've worked on whatever.
Yeah.
Don't automatically presume that they're going to come to you with this.
Yes.
Because particularly in the parental space, there is so much shame.
Oh my God.
And so
especially online, like it's really intense. Yeah.
And the expectations that people put on themselves because coming from a really beautiful place, this strong desire to be a wonderful parent.
Yes.
A wonderful parent.
Yep.
And so that is a really hard thing to, even if you've got a really good relationship with your with your clinician, you can't necessarily presume that your client is going to come and disclose these new things. And so I think that's what psychoeducation in this space does is it opens the door and gives permission.
Yes. Which is so important.
Yeah.
I think the more rapport you have, the more afraid your client will be sometimes to bring stuff
that's a
to
good
you.
point.
Because for some people, and it's not always the case, but for a lot of people that develop this connection and this want to be liked and this image of what your relationship is like. And if there is intense shame, which often there is around thoughts like this, there might be this thought of what will Celine or Tori or whoever it is start to think about me if I disclose these thoughts?
Yeah.
Will I lose that connection?
Yes.
Will I lose the rapport?
Yeah.
Or whatever else it
Will
might
I disappoint
be. Will I
them?
disappoint them? Will I upset them?
Yeah.
Will they fire me as a client?
Yeah.
I think there's a bigger vulnerability there.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to open the door.
Yeah.
And we can't just make the assumption.
No, absolutely not.
Or at least invite the discussion.
I think the other thing is doing some self-work as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we have to do when we're treating OCD is be really aware of how we're feeling, our own internal biases or fears. OCD content is, I don't know, it's
weird, man.
Yeah, it is.
And really fucked up.
It is. I mean, that's just like, isn't it Jonathan Grayson who talks about Stephen King, about how, then in fact it's not people with OCD who have, these crazy thoughts. We all have them. Yeah. And some people have OCD and some people
build Martin with the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's right. Build a career out of it by putting these thoughts to paper and, making something incredible out of it.
Yeah.
I think we as clinicians have to be really aware of our own internal reactions to some of these things. And I think for people who are very experienced working with OCD, I think that, if you've done that work, you've spoken about it in supervision, it's all been normalized, then if someone comes to you and says, I'm imagining throwing my baby against the wall or I'm imagining, kissing my son's penis or something like that, I think we sit with that fairly well.
Yes.
But if you've not had that experience, that can be very anxiety provoking as a clinician. And our clients will know that.
100%.
They are already self-monitoring for people's reactions.
They are. Of course, every look on your face, every change in body language,
the little microsigns,
all of that. What you don't want to be doing is ringing child protection services straight away. You want to be curious, having these discussions, but also not I think the phrase you use is alert but not alarmed.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that alert but not alarmed?
Yeah.
But also having an understanding of what OCD is.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is something we've talked about in terms of truly understanding the ego dystonic nature
Yeah.
of these thoughts and making sure that when you do your assessment, yes, we want to make sure that no child is coming to harm
Absolutely.
or anyone else for that matter. That's important, but we don't want to do it in an alarmist way.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I'll never forget, I was sitting in a workshop and the presenter was talking about a client that they had where they had worked with another therapist and came to see her, and the experience of him, so he had thoughts about harming his children in a sexual way, and the therapist told him to bring his wife to the next session. And in that session, the therapist then proceeded to say, I'm concerned for the welfare of your children. We need to call the police. You need to remove your children from your husband, etc., etc. The wife understood OCD. The husband was terrified, and he's like, I don't want to do these things. Like, I don't, you know. And so the wife didn't react. This was overseas, so I don't know what the reporting requirements were like, but nothing had happened either. Like he was just experiencing intrusive thoughts, typical of OCD. And so the wife then found this particular therapist, and this therapist understood OCD and was like, you've got OCD. This is what we're going to do. And ended up making an almost full recovery, which is a lovely story. But kudos to the wife for sticking with it and understanding it and not reacting. I think the scary part that could have been really damaging was this poor man being not dobbed in, but like, questioned, and what that could have done for not just his treatment, but for his symptoms as well.
I know.
So I think we have to be really careful as to where it goes. But I can understand, like when you're working, if you're a maternal and child health nurse, or you're working in these sorts of areas where you have to make quick decisions.
Yeah.
When you hear these phrases, alarm bells go ringing.
Yeah.
Like you said, they don't have the luxury of the 50 minutes or the hour that we have. And so to be able to be curious and assess it more, as opposed to, so we don't want to be alarmist with it. But we don't want to be dismissive and be like, oh, yeah, that's just OCD either.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can do both of those things
We can.
whilst also managing internal
Our own
responses and
anxiety.
making sure that we're taking care of the client while we undertake that process.
That's right. And not kind of reacting.
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
responsive.
Yeah.
Going, okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, because let's say it is actually a parent who has postnatal depression and is not okay and actually is not coping.
Or prodroming for postnatal psychosis.
Yep. And actually it is not an obsessive thought.
Yep.
And they actually do need additional support.
Yes.
Because they actually might be at risk of hurting their child.
Or themselves.
It would be awful in that space to be
Absolutely.
dismissive of what they're saying to you if they've come and divulged this thing, like I'm quite regardless of how you formulate it in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. Holding space for that very vulnerable moment is essential.
Absolutely. Yeah. One way or the other. And that's part of that curiosity.
Yeah.
And that responsiveness and not reacting and holding it. Because the other thing that allows you to do is it helps you to think about all these other things we need to be aware of, as opposed to then us becoming anxious, thinking only one thing and then heading down that pathway.
Yeah.
Because then we forget about all the other possibilities as well, which is unhelpful. As we get anxious as clinicians, if we allow that to enter the room, and it interrupts our assessment, it interrupts our formulation, and our curiosity, because we're acting out of fight, flight ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about some other things that if you either referred or were working with a client who had become pregnant, or, partner was having a baby.
Yeah.
I think I would be wondering about whether increased frequency of sessions might be useful as sort of a practical strategy.
Yeah. Most definitely.
I mean, being collaborative, we don't, but I think actually providing a bit of additional support, as well as making plans for sessions, having them in the diary for after the baby arrives as well.
Yes.
Even if it's via telehealth, even if it's a 30-minute appointment, but have some things already set up.
Yes.
I mean, it may be that you have some flexibility there where you say to your client, look, if you can't, like if life happens and you can't make it, you know, we can cancel the appointment, but let's have it there in case you need it so that you don't have to think, oh gosh, I have to book an appointment. Oh, but it's 2 a.m. and I can't call the clinic and oh, now I've forgotten and it's been 3 weeks and I'm not well. And, you know, I think actually having some
being proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. Having some strategic planning. I was thinking also about working with the care team, working with the GP, working with your obstetrician if you do have concerns about your client's mental health.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. We're often, I think, pretty thoughtful about working with a psychiatrist or perhaps a speech pathologist. But if someone's moving into this space, I think working with their medical specialist as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else
Those
would you do?
sessions have always been gold for clients, like, you know, where we anticipate, okay, a rough due date is around this time. Let's go for 2 or 3 weeks straight after.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes baby comes in, which is so adorable.
I know.
Yeah. And so whether it's on telehealth or in person, and it's just worth its weight in gold.
I know.
You know, clients are like, I'm so glad we booked this in.
Yeah, agreed.
I was so relieved knowing that I was going to come in here.
Yep.
And it's just a place of where they know they're going to be held.
Yeah.
You know?
Because also it's also an opportunity to reflect on the experience of birthing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so important. You don't get a chance to talk about it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Not from an emotional perspective anyway.
Yeah.
Very much is your body good?
Yeah.
How's your scar if you've got one? Like,
yeah, that's right.
You know, as opposed to how it felt emotionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great. And then extending the offer to partners as well if needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
I think it's really important.
Yeah.
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 I think I have your answer.
Yes.
But I was going to ask you about your opinion on babies in therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love having babies in therapy.
Well, yeah, I figured based on how you responded before, I assumed that was going to be what you would say.
I'm so open
no, me
to
too.
it.
I love having babies in therapy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm so open to that. Like,
yeah.
We need to be flexible.
I ask only because you hear things around. I get it, right?
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been some of my friends who needed some support postnatally and were discouraged from bringing baby to therapy.
Okay.
Now, I respect that perspective because if we're talking about a parent needing some time to talk and think and they're simultaneously trying to feed or soothe a baby, I completely understand why you'd say, no, your mental health is a priority.
Yeah.
Let's find someone to take care of baby so that you can come in and just focus on you. Like I really, really get that.
Yeah.
But what I also know the other half of the experience is that stopped some of my friends going to therapy because they didn't have anyone to ask or they weren't ready to separate.
Yes.
I mean, this is totally not the same thing. But for me, I didn't get a haircut after my first was born for so many months because I wasn't ready to separate and I didn't know if I was allowed to bring her to the hairdresser. I know now. Of course I was.
Yeah.
Like, what an idiot, right?
Yeah.
Of course. I don't know. I think I thought I had to be this like cool parent who was able to like still have a life and still be like all cool, even though I had a baby now, because it wasn't all about baby, even though it was all about baby.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that it was all about baby. But but I went without for so long because I didn't know how to navigate that.
And that's a haircut.
Yeah, and it was a haircut. Imagine therapy.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think I would like to think that we could have that conversation with our clients and give them the choice about what supports do they have?
Yes.
What would they like to choose? And giving them permission to make the choice either way. Because it could go the opposite way. I don't want to bring baby, but are you going to think I'm a bad mother because 3 weeks out I'm not with them?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very much leave it up to the client to decide.
Yeah.
Like clients always it's really sweet how they're like, what if I need to bring, oh my God, please bring the baby. And if you need to bring baby, and like, that's okay. As opposed to just assuming that they can't. Because a lot of people would assume that they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is also thinking about it from an exposure perspective.
Yes.
And whether this is on telehealth or in the clinic.
Yeah.
is that if a new parent is having intrusive thoughts about sort of pedophilic themes, harm themes, contamination themes, whatever it happens to be, where the fear is that their baby will be hurt in some way, having baby in therapy is actually really helpful.
It is.
Because you can do a feed together, you know, you can change nappies together.
You sure can.
You know, you can do all sorts of things to
you can
support
even
them to urge surf.
time a nap.
Yeah.
Or time the session with a nap to, if you're worried about SIDS or breathing or whatever, to like leave the baby in pram behind the parent and just sit with not checking.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As well. Like therapeutically, it has so much value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And these are just some exposure ideas as well in terms of what do we do from a treatment perspective?
Yeah.
Very similar, but go gently, lots of education, lots of grounding, lots of checking in and all that sort of thing as well, and just applying what we would normally apply to these situations. It feels scarier because you've got a real life, you know, and
as opposed to imaginary baby.
Yes,
you know, I know you won't hurt your imaginary baby.
Yes,
but what if you hurt your real baby?
I know, and that's the doubt we've got to sit with our own. Like you were talking about before, we've got our own. Going, please don't be that one person who bucks the trend. But again, it comes down to not just trust, but understanding OCD and your formulation as well, and working with your client in that way. But it brings in so much therapeutic value. But like you said, if the client is not wanting to and they can find the space to, then that's okay too.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to make these things explicit, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
And I think that this is where I really love the therapy as a reflective space. I've had both roles in my career as both sort of taking on a sort of more case management role where I was doing lots of sort of strategic planning and management of someone's clinical care, as well as sitting in the more sort of just reflective psychology specific space. And I think this is one of those moments where the two can merge really beautifully, where it is okay to be a bit more directive and say, this is how I think we should map out the next few months. How does that sit with you?
Yes.
This is what I'd like your therapy to look like. These are the things I think we should plan for. These are the things I think we should put in place. Of course, collaboratively, work with the GP, work with the obstetrician, work with other specialists, et cetera, in a really integrative way. But I think that it's okay to step out of just having that sort of reflective role and leave it up to the client and actually help lead them through because I think that actually helps reduce the mental load and also can be really containing.
Yes, absolutely. That really is part of that process of creating the village around parents. Or parent, depending on who's involved in the care, like in that, to be able to help them feel supported. Because a lot of the time, you know, people often talk about, you know, when are you having kids or this, that, and the other. But then everyone kind of disappears once baby turns up. Unless it's for cuddles or something cute or whatever else it is. And it can feel really lonely. So I think, definitely help. I love that. I love what you've articulated in terms of being able to help your client build their village and stay in the village after baby comes. But even as they're preparing for it, I think that's important too. Helping them manage boundaries, helping them manage their treatment, helping them make sure that they're staying connected so all of the wheels keep turning. But also to be there if one of them falls off.
I know.
As well. I
love this period.
It's and it's a really special time, but also a really crazy time. Chaotic, I think. Definitely.
Lovely.
All right.
Well,
what do you think of that?
I hope that helps clinicians feel a little bit more grounded in sort of what the role is of a psychologist during this time and things to watch out for and spaces to take the therapy.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll catch you in our next episode.